Dillon! You son of a bitch!
Colonel Al Dillon's career, and the man himself, came from humble beginnings. From military service and special ops work, Dillon rose in reputation and secured an illustrious position with the CIA. The novelization of Predator, written by Paul Monet, describes his early years. Al Dillon, a career intelligence man with whom Schaefer had shared special services duty in Thailand years before. Now in his mid-30s, Dillon had grown up in south-central LA, the only kid of color who'd made it off his block for good. He knew the violent ways of the Coke War streets, where his combat training started as soon as he could walk. In 1987, Dillon was in charge of a mission to eliminate a Soviet-backed guerrilla encampment in Central America. While he had originally sent a special unit of Green Berets led by Captain Jim Hopper out to carry the mission, they never returned. With time and options running out, Dillon thought back to his special ops days and sought out the aid of his old colleague, his friend, Major Dutch Schaefer. Dillon was well aware of the moral code Schaefer carried, however, and that he and his team would not agree to act as mercenaries in this operation. So he fabricated a story of a foreign cabinet minister and his aide being held hostage and sold it as a rescue mission. Dutch agreed, and Dillon joined the team, setting off to find the base deep within the Guatemalan jungle. It's this initial ruse, its eventual bringing to light, and the clash of ideologies between two old friends that lies at the heart of Predator. With such conflict causing the turbulence that it does within the group of heroes, it makes the encounter with a deadly alien hunter all the more urgent, and the need to survive it so much more crucial. Dillon outright lies about the true intent behind this mission. He puts the lives of the entire team in jeopardy, and he ultimately does it for his own personal gain and to further his career. In the world of Alien and Predator, this may quickly remind you of another character, Carter J. Burke from Aliens. But overall, we don't view Dillon with the same contempt that we do Burke. Underneath it all, we do get the sense that Dillon really is an okay guy. Unlike Burke, he can be counted on when the situation gets tough, and there's more to worry about than his opposing moral views behind the mission. He doesn't view Dutch's team as expendable grunts that are beneath him. In fact, just the opposite. He knows exactly how good they are, and that they are, in fact, much better than him. He carries a self-awareness about him that is communicated very well throughout the film, and fleshed out even further in the novel version. Take, for example, this scene where the chopper is making its way en route to the jungle. Dillon was keenly aware of his outsider status. He stood in the doorway uneasily, aware that the men were watching him, mostly without expression. Absently, Dillon pulled from his pocket a battered cigarette lighter. On it was the crest of a snarling panther, emblem of the famed commando unit he'd served in Thailand with Schaefer. Casually, he held it out to show it to Ramirez, who was closest to him. But the gesture didn't work, perhaps because the Redbird team didn't give two shits about the army, past or present. Dillon simply had to accept the fact that they saw him as a desk man and an opportunist who couldn't hide his status under those starched fatigues. Mac, observing this interchange, looked over at his buddy Blaine, his beady eyes narrowing as he nodded in Dillon's direction. Blaine continued to roll his jaw, masticating the tobacco. He paused, eyes on the floor, then hawked a thick vial stream of juice directly between Dillon's legs and onto the floor of the cabin. A thin, gelatinous skein of the stuff laced across the toe of one of Dillon's combat boots. Dillon looked up, his face stone-cold and menacing. "Man, that's a real bad habit you got," he said, icily. He didn't seem quite so unsure of himself now. If they were going to play hard to get, well, two could play that game too. Dillon turned back into the cockpit as Mac and Blaine grinned at each other in triumph. They'd just won a small guerrilla skirmish, further confirming their opinion of Dillon as a spineless character. To these guys, at least, Dillon couldn't win for losing. He had Washington, D.C. written all over him. The 5 commandos were active-duty lifers. They even disdained R&R, unless it was a 3-day drunk. To them, Dillon was a pussy and a cop-out until he proved otherwise. Dillon also grasps and accepts the true line of command when the team is out there on their own. Officially, on paper, this is Dillon's operation. He makes the calls. But the true leader, and the only one these men will follow orders from, is Schaefer. Dillon has no illusions about this, and he very much knows his place. Additionally, he knows that he has been out of action for some time, and his own skills may be questionable. There's the amusing line during the briefing scene where Dutch jokingly asks if the CIA has Dillon pushing too many pencils. But there is a truth behind that taunt, and Dillon is self-conscious about it. In another scene, present in the film and expanded upon in the novel, Dillon reveals just how out of practice he is on the way to the encampment. Dillon, for all his seniority, was content to let Dutch do the navigating. His own inner compass was rusty, and he knew it. Dillon followed 5 meters behind. He accidentally stepped on a broken branch of a felled tree, his foot crunching through the rotting, grub-infested wood. A chunk broke loose and rolled down the hill, gathering bark and gravel, finally landing at the base of a rock with a thunk. Not a lot of noise, but it couldn't have been made by anything else but a man. At once, Dillon cringed and tightened into a defensive posture, listening for any signs that he'd given away their position. The jungle was unmoved as he strained his eyes and ears, terrified he'd announced the team's presence to the enemy. Accidents were not permissible under these tense circumstances. Dillon felt like a horse's ass. 24 hours ago, he was sitting dazed at his desk at Langley, being given the sudden orders for the mission. He had a bad ache in his calf muscle, and he'd managed to twist his back tripping over a root. Horse's ass was right. As Dillon listened, teeth gritted at his own stupidity, Mac appeared silently from behind a bush, parting its broad leaves. He stood within inches of Dillon's face, eyes burning with contempt and anger. "You're ghosting on me, motherfucker," he hissed, spraying spittle in the black man's face. "I don't give a shit what kind of big dick you got in Washington. You give away my position again and I'll bleed you quiet and leave your fucking ass right here. And you can write your fucking senator if you don't like it. Got it, pal?" Dillon glared back in cold hatred, but he didn't answer back. He was stalemated by combat rules he knew as well as Mac, and he'd just broken them. Dillon was left thrown and speechless, staring at the rustle of leaves that had swallowed Mac. But Dillon didn't have any recourse, official or otherwise. He picked up the trail again, this time watching every footfall. The novelization has a great way of getting into these scenes in a way that Predator, the film, being as fast-paced and action-packed as it is, just couldn't allow. Much like with Alan Dean Foster's novelizations of the Alien films, Monet's book here captures the spirit of the movie but is able to work within the freedom of a novel format and allow such expansions. None better than the scenes where Dillon and Schaefer finally go head-to-head. Here is the scene where Dutch finally confirms that a double-cross has taken place. "It was all bullshit. All of it. Right from the start, huh? You set us up," he sneered. "Brought us in here to fight your dirty little nonpartisan war. I guess we're what you call technical advisors. Ain't that the polite word for it? Or have you figured out something even better? Something that makes your shit smell real clean, right? You fucking son of a bitch." Dillon retorted angrily. "Hey, give me a break, Dutch. So the company set you up. So who do you believe in? The Easter Bunny? We had a goddamn good reason. You're the best there is, Dutch. I needed you. Why the fuck didn't you tell me what was going down?" Dillon shrugged. It was the shrug of every bureaucrat the world over. "Couldn't, Dutch. Had little blue tags all over it. National security, White House only. I didn't even know all the details myself till I was on the plane. They asked me who could take out a guerrilla camp, and I said, you guys. I had to give you a cover story. Orders right from the Oval Office. Swear to God, Dutch. Remind me to pledge allegiance next time we pass a flag. You got a right to be pissed. I'm not saying you don't. That's real sporting of you, pal. And another thing, what kind of story did you tell Jim Hopper?" Dillon winced, recalling the 3 horribly mutilated men they'd found earlier. "Dutch, you've got to understand. We've been trying to find this place for months. Hopper was sent in to pull the CIA guys once they had a fix on the camp. He volunteered for the job, but he must have gotten careless, flew too close, and they shot him down. When he disappeared, I had to clean up and stop these bastards. We were so close, we couldn't quit." Dillon's tone had softened. It was more like plea bargaining than righteous indignation. "We couldn't sleep through this one, Dutch. You were the only guy I could trust." "To invade a foreign country, illegally." Schaefer spoke cold as a prosecutor, savoring the affront to international law. "You lied, pal. That's all it comes down to. You stacked the odds and set us up. You could have gotten every one of us killed. We could be rotting our asses off in tiger cages for the duration of the fucking conflict and nobody would even know except the White House. Gee, you think maybe him and Nancy'd remember us in their prayers? Like when they're saying grace at dinner, and maybe there's a picture of Lincoln on the wall?" He paused a moment, breathing heavy from the rage and feeling a dryness in his throat like he'd given his right thumb a carta blanca. With huge contempt, he spat out the next words. "You used to be one of us, Dillon. I think maybe we're drinking buddies too, but I must have been really in the bag because I mixed you up with this guy who saved my ass once. I don't know who the fuck you are." No one was going to win this tennis match. The ball had been smashed to smithereens. "We've been through a lot together, Dutch. Dillon replied quietly, still groping for a way to unplug Schaefer's rage. We were the best. But hey, things changed. We're fighting these Marxist wackos in a dozen fucking countries, and they're getting closer. This isn't the rice paddies anymore. We're 3 hours from Texas. We lose this fight, Dutch, and they start playing the game with buttons. We're all expendable assets, Major. Can't you see that? Schaefer snapped the document out of Dillon's hand. That's your problem, Dillon, he said. And I'll tell you something else. Your stand for democracy and a quarter wouldn't buy me a fucking Hershey bar. What it's always about for you is getting ahead, isn't it? You gotta be the first black president or else. Who cares about a bunch of off-the-wall commandos? They gotta die sometime, right? Well, listen good, dude. My men are not expendable. We don't do this kind of work. Schaefer crumpled the paper in his fist. This is your dirty little war, not mine. Then he stuffed the wad into Dillon's shirt pocket and walked away. Dillon didn't move for a moment. He let the wad of paper sit in his breast pocket. He knew where he stood with Schaefer now, but in any case, there was no more time to waste. He bent to sift again through the papers. The clash is not quite over just yet, as it picks up again in another scene moments later, when Dillon proposes to take Anna along with them. In the film, this is a fairly quick exchange. Here, in the novel version, it's another struggle, and we get some more of their opposing viewpoints, and some further insight into Dutch. As for the problem of Dillon, the Major knew that, though he himself had a keen sense of other men's limits and loyalties, he had one glaring flaw. He believed that combat experience made everyone as tough as he was, and he expected as much integrity as he delivered. And that kind of standard sometimes led to bitter disappointment or worse. Dillon had treaded on a territory that bordered on the double-cross, offending Schaefer irreversibly. Rank was academic at this point. If Dillon had tried to give him an order just then, he would have responded with a contemptuous laugh. She goes with us, he stated flatly. Hey, she doesn't need us to save her. Schaefer's voice was dry. She's gonna have about 1,000 friends here in half an hour. Sorry, Dutch, she's too valuable. She's gotta know their whole network. Dillon couldn't keep the excitement out of his voice. What she knows could mean the lives of thousands of people. We take her with us, he repeated precisely. This time it sounded like an order. Schaefer held out a massive fist, thumb pointing to the ground. His lower lip curled with suppressed fury. We take her and she'll give away our position, he countered tightly. Every chance she gets. No prisoners. They were sparring with something here that was bigger than logistics. There was a deep rift between them now, with the details of the mission revealed. They both knew how far down two opposite roads they'd traveled since they last saw each other. The sparks flying between them couldn't hide what seemed like an underlying sense of pity they felt for each other. Dillon simply couldn't understand why Schaefer still held to an old code that a new kind of war had left far behind. For his part, Schaefer was feeling as if he had enemy troops coming at him from both sides, or was it two different kinds of enemy? One inside and one outside. And Dillon was some kind of go-between? Dillon walked past Schaefer and strode to the radio hookup and grabbed the handset. He held it out to Schaefer and spoke across the ruins. You're still under orders, Dutch, he said coldly, pulling rank at last. You want to make the call, or should I? Schaefer stared at him, then down at the dazed girl. He knew Dillon had this round won. There was nothing Dutch could do about it while he still had responsibility for the commando team. But he wouldn't give Dillon the satisfaction of a verbal response. He simply turned and walked away. I'm getting my men out of this fucking pit, Dillon, he growled. That's the mission now. The broad's your baggage. You fall behind, you're on your own. It was a precarious and potentially dangerous standoff. Dillon was in nominal charge of the evacuation, but he knew his life depended on the Major's cooperation. At this point, Dillon's seniority counted for a little more than a couple extra stripes on his shoulder, and the shoulder was liable to get very bloody at any moment. So he simply let the challenge slide and assumed all further responsibility for the prisoner. The two men reach a real mask-off moment, and it's clear things between them will never quite be the same. What a damned strange twist of fate it is for Dillon, then, that the circumstances of this mission would put him in a place to look back into the past. To reunite with an old friend who reminds him of his old ways, that he may have justified as naive to that point, but then challenges his current worldview. And it would take a fucking alien from outer space to really force him into assessing what was really important. It would take this incredible, impossible aligning of stars to provoke this reflection and lead to his own redemption. The Predator has nothing to do with this world. It doesn't care about our politics, it just wants to hunt and to kill. The primal need for survival arises in Dillon and in these men, but further to that, the sense of oneness, to protect your brethren, all personal views aside. There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophy. As Dillon reaches the end of his journey, perhaps not quite knowing so, but aware of the likelihood, he holds back for the man left behind. There is a nice exchange between Dillon and Schaefer where in so many ways they're saying goodbye without really saying it. This is also expanded upon in the novel version. Dutch started off through the trees after Mac, but immediately Dillon stepped in his path, a hand pushing against Schaefer's chest. "No way, Dutch. I'm going. You take the rest and get the hell over the border." "This is no time to play hero, Dillon," Schaefer retorted. "Guess I've picked up some bad habits from you, Dutch," Dillon replied. "Now don't argue with me. Not only am I your commanding officer, but you also know I'm right. Get to that chopper and hold it for us. I'll find Mac and we'll be right behind you." "Dillon, you can't win this one." The Major was almost touched by Dillon's sincerity. There was a glimmer here of the man he would have laid down his life for once. The black soldier stared defiantly. He was beginning to show the stripes he wore. "You know me, Dutch. I never did know when to quit. How am I ever going to be the first black president if I don't learn how to walk through the fire?" For the first time on this mission, Schaefer felt a rush of feeling for the old Dillon. The Major backed down now with more than a touch of respect for the man. It was a strange experience for a loner like Schaefer to find himself proud to obey the man who was supposed to be in charge all along. As Dillon moved out, Schaefer called after him. "Hey, buddy, take this." As the top man turned back, Schaefer tossed him a spare MP5. Dillon snatched it out of the air with one hand. They shared an utterly naked look, a look that said their differences were settled. It was also a look of farewell. These were men who kept their bases covered. "I'll see you at the chopper," Schaefer said with a dreadful hollow certainty that he would never see the man alive again. "Right behind you," Dillon called back. It was as if Dillon had done some hard reflecting on his own role in the mission so far, and he wasn't pleased at all with the deceit. True, it had been thought necessary for the highest national security purposes, but finally so what? It had also been the source of the tension between Schaefer, the team, and himself. Somehow he wanted to make up for all the crossed feelings, and he knew that wiping out the mutant creature was the one way to do it. Maybe not all of these moments of reflection could work within the film version, but they are undoubtedly working in the undercurrent. Much of the time, more can be said without saying much at all, so it perfectly works that way in the film, though it is nice to have that extra affirmation in the form of a different medium, such as Monet's book. Predator, to me, is just a perfect movie. It fuses together two genres I love passionately, science fiction and action, in a seamless and expert way. Its pace is exact, and it is thoroughly entertaining. It never fails to draw you in, no matter how many times you've watched it. If I had to lean into one genre more than another, I would say it's action, but it also just so happens to be one of the greatest action movies ever made, ever. Some would call it fun, mindless action. I agree with the fun part, for sure, but mindless? I think not. There are complex themes running throughout, and careful consideration is given to its characterization. This is especially apparent when focusing on the Dillon character. So who better to play him than the incredible, the legendary, towering talent that is Carl Weathers? He has played so many memorable roles, reaching icon status decade after decade. I think everyone has their own role that they remember him for, and everyone has their own personal favorite. My personal favorite is here, and his role as Dillon. I can't imagine anyone else playing the character the way he does, and bringing as much to it as he does. According to director John McTiernan, he had to push to get Weathers cast because, well, he was a little bit out of the studio's budget. But his argument was that with Weathers, he could get someone with the physical demands of the role, someone who could play off Arnold, who was still early in his career and eager to master his acting craft, and could learn from him. And most importantly, was a damn good actor. To say it all worked out is an understatement. This is an incredible pairing. Weathers, in addition to bringing so much to his own role, and making it the best it could possibly be, also had this wonderful generosity about him, where he also made other actors look better and brought the best out in them. What is Schaefer without Dillon? What is Rocky without Apollo? Sadly, Carl Weathers passed away last week at the age of 76. It gave fans around the world a shock, and we continue to mourn him. Whether you know him best for his role as Apollo in the Rocky series, Dillon in Predator, or his brilliant comedic turns as Chubbs in Happy Gilmore, or his recurring guest role as himself in Arrested Development, or the Star Wars series, The Mandalorian, he just touched so many lives with his art over the years. Friends, colleagues, and fans have shared their condolences over the past week and their memories of the man. By all accounts, he was just the most incredibly nice guy you could ever work with or meet. I never got the chance to meet him myself, but I did get a thrill a few years back when he responded to a tweet I sent him. I said, "You put up a hell of a fight against the Predator." His response was very matter-of-fact and really made me laugh. He said, "It was written that way." Rest in peace, Carl Weathers, and be peace. If you have any memories you'd like to share, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.